Hey legends, and welcome back to the least knowledgeable sim racing channel, where we're visiting the seedy underbelly of our industry.
Olha, mano, não dá pra entender, velho. Olha o tanto que sai de frente, o pneu é muito frio, ele é o único. Eu não sei o que esse cara faz.
As multiplayer gaming has become progressively more mainstream over the last 20 years, so has the amount of capital, attention, and sponsorship flowing through the industry. That industry is now big business, turning over hundreds of millions in ad revenue, sponsorships, donations, etc. Wherever the big bucks and opportunity reside, there comes with them the desire to succeed at all costs. With that said, it should perhaps surprise nobody that the incidence of reported cheating in sim racing has increased a lot ever since the lockdown-inspired sim racing boom. Exploits are as old as video games themselves. For every bit of growth the industry has experienced, there's been an equal amount of growth in the amount of hacks, trainers, bots, and exploits. Video games began by attracting a very inquisitive sort. Many developers actually got their start by cracking pre-existing games, modding them, or in otherwise just exploiting the source code. The pursuit isn't always predicated by underhanded motives, but rather the desire to challenge oneself and learn. In that sense, exploits were always naturally going to be uncovered in software, leading rise to one of the information age's persistent travelers. Much as the common cold is for humankind. As esports is big business now, the incidence of cheating and reported cheating is stratospheric. Every developer likes to wax lyrical about how impenetrable their anti-cheat systems are, but the reality is that no piece of software is completely bulletproof, and the only way to stop cheating, mostly, is to have players play in pre-prepped systems in locked-off arenas. The issue with sim racing in particular is that a cheat only has to give someone 1/10 of a second per corner in order to make all the difference. While the typical aimbot and wall hack combo that used to one-shot me in Counter-Strike 1.5 back in high school was very easy to spot and subsequently level colossal amounts of abuse at, the ones employed for sim racing can be far more subtle and insidious. This makes it very difficult to not only detect cheating but put in place measures to combat it. The recent bout of sim racing woes have been spearheaded by a user called Callum Cross in iRacing. Shortly after he was videoed creating a 2-second lead across the Suzuka S's on an opening lap.
Se ele acertar, e se eu não errar? Olha, mano, não dá pra entender, velho. Olha o tanto que sai de frente, o pneu é muito frio, ele é o único. Eu não sei o que esse cara faz.
Fortunately, there wasn't very much time for speculation because the user himself came out almost immediately saying that yes, he has been hacking for over a year and that as he works in the software industry, such exploits are commonplace to him. He touched on the idea, as we did earlier, that the endeavor is more about challenging oneself and learning rather than anything intrinsically nefarious. Unfortunately, it also tends to not come with the moral compass to not use these exploits in competition. The widespread reality of the situation codified shortly after he came clean and started being contacted by vast amounts of individuals and esports teams courting him to provide those physics hacks for their uses in competition. While I was in high school and I spoke to the kids openly cheating in online shooters, it became very obvious that their psychology was vastly different to my own. The standard moral reservations about fair play simply weren't going to move them. They were amused by overcoming the systems of a game, and the more users were angered by them, the more joy they got out of the experience. People often ask me, why do we only see you hot lapping or racing against AI? And to be frank, this is one of the reasons. Aside from finding myself on the other side of the planet from the racing hubs in Europe and the US, which would lead to very unfortunate netcode issues, the reality is such that I simply don't want the experience of racing randoms in uncontrolled situations. I don't care for them using exploits that'll make them attain times that'll force me to rack my brain wondering where I went wrong as a sim racer. This also includes those top tier sim racing aliens which use negligible levels of force feedback and mainstream physics exploits to basically delineate the experience from real driving. At a certain point, sim racing schisms from the real thing, as each game develops its own set of parameters and hacks that a sim racer can leverage in order to gain maximum amounts of time, which wouldn't necessarily translate over to the real life driving experience and thus doesn't really carry over to somebody who wants to just be training their body for the real thing. This is especially obvious when it comes to actual cheating, as we've seen recently, where the goal is to win at all costs and developing one's own personal driving ability falls by the wayside. We saw a similar psychology at play with iRacing for many years, with the die-hard fans willing to stick by the time model no matter what, all up until the sim racing boom of a couple of months ago led a few real-life drivers to flood onto the platform and immediately start talking about how unrealistically the cars handled at the limit compared to the real thing.
Fix it! Oh my god! Fix your f***ing tires!
While the iRacing developers don't deny that there is cheating on their platform, one has to wonder whether this is the first pebble being blown out that'll cause the entire dam to burst. For every Callum Cross, it makes you wonder how many have gotten away with it over the years. How many top tier esports teams are regularly making use of these exploits to maintain their positions of dominance? When you have a Formula 1 team like Ferrari cheating for years at the highest level of motorsport, what's to stop people cheating in far lower risk, far lower reward esports events? There have been calls to arms across the sim racing scene, but the rather morose reality is that very little is likely to come of it. Developers are usually swamped with other developmental concerns with their games, and the automated systems are not likely to catch much cheating at all. We just have to stay vigilant, do our best, and accept that, much like the precautionary measures that we take with the common cold, it's not always going to go our way, and we have to make peace with that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit subscribe and stay up to date with future sim racing news. If you want to help support the channel, maybe check out the affiliate links down below, and until next time, we'll see you guys later.